What's going on, everybody? This is John J Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the NCSL here on College Football Revamped. We had our opening week in the previous episode, and just looking at the top stories from around the league, it was a really entertaining week. I had a fun time recording those games, and I know some of you guys really had a great time watching all of the great games unfold right before your eyes. But that being said, we jump into week number 2. We got some major matchups around the NCSL. There's going to be some bar fights around the NCSL. You know, we got our usual slate of nationally televised games, but what if I told you that we are going to have 4 top 25 matchups basically in non-conference season? That's what we got lined up for us here today. So guys, it's going to be a really special episode here of the NCSL. Not only having 16 games once again, but also having 4 top 25 matchups to rock and roll with as well. So it's going to be a fun one here. I hope you guys go ahead and enjoy this episode. And if you do, make sure you go ahead, smack that like button, hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel, because that like and subscribe not only gets us closer to the next like and subscribe, but it helps get this video out to more college football fans like yourself. So with that being said, let's dive right into the action. We'll kick it off with those 12:30 games. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into the NCSL action here in week number 2. And we start with a triple box game. We got 3 games out here in the NCSL in the early going, one of which is Michigan taking on Fresno State. And this should be a good one, as Fresno State, they were just coming off a win against the number 18 ranked Charlotte 49ers. We'll see if they can find a way to get to a 2-0 start here, get their way into the top 25, but John Blair is going to try to put a stop to that, as he's going to get the opening drive touchdown for the number 8 ranked Michigan Wolverines, as that will be his second rushing touchdown of the season. But Fresno State will respond with a field goal. Kick is up, and it's going to be good. So Fresno State will cut it down to a 4-point game. But then we jump into the second quarter of action. Michigan will get on the board yet again with a field goal of their own, get it back to a 7-point game. And yet with 3:22 left to play in the first half, we got a great run by this tailback, finding his way into the end zone. That's a touchdown for the Bulldogs, all knotted up at 10 apiece all of a sudden. And they have the ball again with less than 2 minutes left to play in the first half. Can they get another one on the board? Matt Nelson certainly trying to make that happen. Already got that. Actually, I thought he had a rushing touchdown, but did not. Was the person that had that carry. Turns out they have 2 white running backs. But kick is going to be up, and it's going to be good. So Fresno State will make it 17-13. And now it's Michigan's turn with the football, but they throw an interception. It might be taken all the way back, and it is. Jeff Steele, one of the DBs, just intercepts Mike Williams, and Fresno State now has the lead. And after a free and out for the Michigan Wolverines, they have a chance to possibly add more points onto the board, and they get this halfback screen to go very far. It's a 37-yard reception, so it puts Fresno State in field goal range here. It's going to be a 40-yard field goal attempt. Not the easiest one to make for college kickers, but sinks it right through. So Fresno State has the lead against the number 8 team in the nation. But then that second half comes around, and the Wolverines really start to come alive. They really wake up as a football team. Aaron Hines going to get this 5th reception of the day, for example. Setting him up inside the 5-yard line, where their tailback is going to punch it in. That is Jason Sims, the backup, who's going to get that goal line carry. And now the Michigan Wolverines are starting to pull away, 31-23, as Williams looks over the middle of the field, almost froze. Yet another touchdown pass. Jarrett Webb, the reception, who gets his 3rd catch of the afternoon. But now 3rd and goal, and Williams actually going to try to throw for it. No, he's going to scramble, and Mike Williams is going to have a scamper into the end zone. Touchdown, Wolverines. So down by 15 now. Fresno State Can they respond? Looking for a comeback. This will help them tremendously. Chase Hines, first touchdown throw of the day, comes at a big time. And if they can get this 2-point conversion, it makes it a 7-point game. But they cannot get the 2-point conversion. And that is as close as they get. Michigan, they got a battle for Fresno State. That Bulldogs team is solid. But the Michigan Wolverines win 44-29 in a close ball game. So now we check in on another top 25 team here in the early going. The Tennessee Volunteers were still ranked number 13 in the country, even though they lost in week number 1 to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. We'll see if they can come back and get some wins against Marshall, who also is in the New Look MAC Conference, as they'll try to punch it into the end zone. Quarterback, he's going to try to take it out on the perimeter, breaks one tackle, gets away from another, ball's on the ground though, and it's going to be recovered by one of the offensive linemen, John Davis, the one that got his hands on that football. And that was actually the only score that we actually see in that first half of action. It's been a very low scoring game. But yeah, here we are in the fourth quarter. Tennessee does have a 10-0 lead. They're trying to put this game away. Michael Latimer does get his first catch of the day. Gets him inside the 5-yard line, as it looks like it's going to be another handoff up the middle, and it's going to be a touchdown for the Tennessee Volunteers. That will make it 17-0. So unless something absolutely wild happens here, looks like Tennessee is going to win their first game of the season. But Marshall does not go down quietly. They're going to score quickly with C.J. Charles, and then they score another touchdown off screen. But since they couldn't get that onside kick, Tennessee will hang on and win, 17-14 being that final score. And now we check in on the premier 12:30 kickoff game. Utah taking on the University of California. Both teams ranked in that top 25. And should be an interesting game between these two teams, as Cal, they're just barely coming off a win against an FCS squad. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle not only an FBS team, but also a ranked FBS squad, right? So with that being said, we're going to get things going in the opening drive, and Utah is going to fire a 36-yard bomb over the middle to Chris Douglas, as Willie Bradford just doing a phenomenal job of just putting that right on the money there. Not even that great of a football, for being honest. You know, not a very tight spiral whatsoever, but Utah will have a 7-0 lead. As towards the end of the first half, Utah drives down the field yet again, but takes a massive shot right up the middle, as TJ Weldon is going to be awarded with his first sack of the game. They will have to settle for a field goal, which the field goal attempt is going to be good. So Utah with a 10-0 lead, but Cal trying to drive late in the first half. Fires over to the left-hand side. He's got a receiver at the 20, the 15, and that's where he gets dropped. Josh Joseph with a 42-yard reception. Cal quickly gets to the line of scrimmage. They only have one timeout left to work with, but they will not be needing that timeout, as Dusty Rice is able to get behind the defense, and it's just a field goal game going into the second half of action. Dropping back the pass, meanwhile, looking for another big ball down the left-hand side. It's a perfect throw to Josh Joseph, who gets his second big bomb of the game. And for the first time in this football game, Cal actually has the lead. But it can still go either way, as Utah finds Chris Douglas once again. Willie Bradford getting his second passing touchdown of the game as well. Can still go either way here in this fourth quarter of action. Now we jump in with a minute 30 left. Utah trying to manufacture a game-winning try, but they might have just done that for the other team, as it looks like first turnover of the game, by the way. Bubba Jones responsible for the pick, and California with a chance to take the lead with 1 minute left, and they do. Billy Pugh is going to run it into the end zone with just a minute left to play. And now instead of Utah trying to potentially win this game, they got to drive down the length of the field just to tie. And it looks like that fat lady, yeah, she might be singing right now, barring a miracle. This time it's Dave Pearson who gets the interception. As now 3rd and 8, we're going to see Billy Pugh carry the football once again, and that's going to be the dagger, as the California Bears, after just barely beating an FCS squad last week, they host number 15 Utah, and they take down the number 15 ranked squad by 2 touchdowns. But we continue to jump into the NCSL action. 4 more games starting to go ahead. And we'll start with Ole Miss taking on the Houston Cougars. Rebels looking for their very first win of the season. We'll see if they can get it from this Houston Cougar squad here in non-conference play, as Ole Miss will look to extend their lead even further, and they will with DeMarcus Underwood. And it looks like Ole Miss is off to a hot start, getting to a 14-0 lead. But we will get our first studio update of this episode, though. Georgia Southern, they're going to take a 3-0 lead over the Arizona State Sun Devils. So we'll have to check in at certain points of this episode to see how that score plays out. If we do end up seeing a game score for them later on in this episode. If not, we can always check in towards the end. But that being said, though, very good performance for the Ole Miss offense so far. They're now at 21 points here in this ball game, as we get yet another studio update. Georgia Southern and Arizona State going at it right now. They're tied by 10, as Eric Jackson's trying his best to get their first win of the year. But that being said, Ole Miss, they simply dominate the Houston Cougars in this one, as DeMarcus Underwood runs all over them. So now we check in on the Washington Huskies. Both teams coming in pretty hot. Florida State last week, they blew out Wyoming, while Washington on the road blew out TCU. So going to be very interesting to see how this particular game plays out. Of course, the advantage has got to be Washington, since they are here at home and they're the higher ranked team. And very good start for the Washington Huskies. They take a 14-0 lead for the end of the quarter, as Joe McDaniel simply dealing that particular quarter. Already's got a pair of touchdowns and 100 yards of total offense himself. But we check in on yet another studio update. Georgia Southern and Arizona State going at it between these two squads. Could still go either way, as Georgia Southern has a 17-10 lead that they're currently working through. Meanwhile, to end the first half, Florida State still searching for their first touchdown of the ball game, and they're going to get it courtesy of a J.T. Jones touchdown. Luis Barrett has been efficient, 10 for 12, but they're going to need a lot of that if they're going to pull the upset, especially with the way that Washington's playing right now, and particularly Joe McDaniel, who now has 4 touchdown passes in this game, and we still have a whole half of football that needs to be played right now. So, Washington, they are certainly rolling. They are riding high like a kite right now, and they're in yet another goal line situation here towards the end of the third quarter. McDaniel looks over the middle of the field, but makes his first mistake of the ball game. That's Goodman, and that might be one of the defensive linemen that dropped back in the coverage. So a nice job disguising the defense there, but Florida State, however, they cannot take advantage of that opportunity. And now Washington on the goal line yet again, looking to get that 30-burger up on the board, and they will, as Joe McDaniel gets his 5th touchdown of the game. Great game for Joe McDaniel. And we'll have one more studio update. Georgia Southern will also beat Arizona State. This one a lot closer than what we saw in this Washington-Florida State game, as Washington blows the doors off the Florida State Seminoles to get to 2-0 on the season. So now we check in on Colorado State taking on the Louisville Cardinals, and it's a much nicer day here at Cardinal Stadium. Used to be called Papa John's Cardinal Stadium, but with the little bit of controversy that they had a few years ago that the Papa John's spokesperson had, they did remove that name. So now it's just called Cardinal Stadium. But either way, the Louisville Cardinals, they're playing pretty well to start this game. They're going to take a 10-0 lead against Colorado State, who's coming off a loss against their hated rival, the Colorado Buffaloes. Trying to load it up deep, fellas. They wanted a big-time throw towards the end of the first half. Instead, it's going to be a positive play the other way, as Colorado State, they're going to be starting at about midfield. Charles Huffman doing a great job putting them in a great spot, and this is exactly what the Rams needed right now, because you see what's happening on the scoreboard. They haven't really got much going on the offensive side of the ball either. So 40 seconds left here in the first half. They're going to try to throw one deep downfield, and they got themselves a guy, William Garcia, who makes a dynamic diving grab with 38 seconds left in the first half of action. That's a touchdown for Colorado State. And now they have the lead, trying to even up their record on the season. As Eric McBride, late in the third quarter, he's going to take off. Has to break a couple of tacklers, but he finds the end zone for a touchdown himself. Now Colorado State putting the pressure on Louisville. As we know, these Cardinals, they gotta at least score a field goal. Otherwise, it's going to feel like this game is truly slipping away. As we have the last play of the third quarter, dropping back, looks to the left-hand side and finds Ricky Nelson. So Louisville will respond before we go into that final frame. Can still go in either direction. 21-17, 4.5 minutes left. McBride looks for the finisher, and he might get it in James Walker, who provides a 16-yard touchdown. Now Colorado State building on their lead, trying to put this game away. 31-17 ends up being your final score after what we saw from that field goal. Louisville, they did throw the ball a lot today. They had over 400 yards passing, but it's not enough. As now we check in on a battle in what I passionately like to call the Carolinas Conference, as South Carolina will be taking on the North Carolina State Wolfpack. And how about this throw to start this game? Sam Wallace with a 14-yard reception. That was an absolute dime. It allows South Carolina to take a 7-0 lead for right now. But Derek Davis is going to take a sack, though. You don't like to see that. Loss of 5 there. And now it's 3rd and 16. Lot to pick up. They just go with the halfback screen. However, they got the blockers here. They might pick up the first down, and they do. Thomas Logan actually picks up the first down for the South Carolina Gamecocks. And now it's a goal line situation. Few plays later, 3rd and goal. Davis looks to the left-hand side, finds a receiver in Ralph Johnson, who quickly cuts his way into the end zone. The Gamecocks now with a 14-0 lead. As now North Carolina State still trying to get on the board. They go with a halfback counter. Got some good blocking there, as Kevin Hood will be able to move the ball forward a little bit for a gain of 6 yards on the play. As now 2nd and 4 coming up. Dropping back, he's going to hand it off to the tailback. Tailback is going to fight his way into the end. No, he's not going to get into the end zone. But it's a good 10-yard run, as NC State, if they can score here, can make this a one-possession game. It's going to be a triple option. Does he pitch it? Yes, he does. And Kevin Hood does the rest of the work. Simply a numbers game when you're running that option attack, and we certainly saw that there. So that's going to be a touchdown for the Wolfpack. In less than 3 minutes left in the first half, they even have a chance to even up this game. So South Carolina may have started strong, but NC State, to their credit, has weathered the storm and now has a chance to tie. Dropping back, looks to the left-hand side, but it's intercepted. 2 receivers go to the exact same spots. And that's just easier, so much easier to play defense if you do it that way. So South Carolina, they will have one more chance at a Hail Mary. It's a decent Hail Mary attempt, actually. There was 2 receivers to where one defender was, and yet somehow that one defender comes away with it. I don't know how you pull that off if you're South Carolina, but we're going to the halftime. Gamecocks do have a one-possession lead for now. However, they will extend on their one-possession lead late in the third quarter after a successful field goal attempt. And there's going to be multiple field goal attempts for the South Carolina kicker. He goes to work today, making it 20-7. Now looking for the trifecta in terms of successful field goals. He'll sink this one right through too. So now 23-7 ends up being your score. And NC State not only needing a touchdown, but also a 2-point conversion if they want to cut this down to a 1-score lead. Kyle Jones with a critical touchdown. And now they'll go for that 2-point conversion to make this an 8-point game. And he gets it to Brent Ratliff. Now it gets significantly more interesting now. NC State, after using their timeouts, they do get the ball back. So a chance to possibly take this game into overtime. So let's see if they got it in them. Less than a minute left. They're still at the 30-yard line. Trying to set up the screen. Gets it out to the tailback, who breaks one tackle. Now he has a little bit of a convoy. Gets himself out of bounds too. Now they're across midfield, but down to the last 24 seconds left. Looking around. Throws to the right inside, and the defensive lineman intercepts him. And that fat lady will officially be singing that North Carolina State quarterback, he's beside himself, as Phillip Irons, the defensive end, is going to put this game on ice completely. South Carolina is now going to be 2-0. So we have a little bit of a double box game action here, as we'll see Nebraska take on Colorado, while as we'll get some MAC action with West Virginia taking on the Kentucky Wildcats. We'll start with a team with arguably one of the most impressive wins in week number 1, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. They beat a number 6 ranked Texas A&M squad on the road, and because of that, they were ranked as the number 18 team in the country, but struggling early against the Colorado Buffaloes, taking the sack there. And I didn't realize Nebraska ran a little bit of a triple option here. Not something that I realized when we were covering the week 1 game against Texas A&M. But again, not a good start for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. They do put the ball on the ground, and Colorado does end up taking advantage. They march down the field, and they will hit this field goal through to make this a 2-possession lead. So Nebraska still looking to get on the board with less than 2 minutes left in the first half. Going to get it out to their tailback, who's going to break one tackle. Fights desperately, only to pick up 5 yards. And Nebraska will use their second timeout, but a couple plays later, going 3rd and 6, they actually throw the football. First time we've seen them do that in the red zone, and maybe shouldn't have done that as C.J. McIntyre. He's just having an off day. Josh Townsend takes advantage of said off day, as Colorado looking for that big upset to get the 2-0 on the season. Looking a little bit better for them. They get another field goal up on the board. Still a 2-score game, but can't lose off of field goals. They gotta have Nebraska score touchdowns, which Nebraska hasn't really done today. They have not really done a good job getting those touchdowns that they're looking for. As we get towards the end of the third quarter, Colorado will go ahead and tack on yet another field goal attempt, which will be up and good. So now 16-3 is your score with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. However, CJ McIntyre stops being allergic to the end zone and makes it just a 6-point game. And they also have the ball with 2 minutes left in the ball game. McIntyre throws to the right inside, but gets picked off. He telegraphed this throw, and that's going to be an easy score for the Colorado DB, as that is Thomas Lane. Thomas Lane stepping in front of the receiver, and this stadium absolutely going nuts right now. And on top of that, they're going to go for the 2-point conversion as well, try to make this a 14-point lead, but that offensive line, they tried to give him some time, does not work out for him, and Nebraska will make this a little bit interesting towards the end of the game. They're going to score here with 24 seconds left, so they're going to try to go for the onside kick. They must recover, and they're not going to do that. They will be unsuccessful in garnering that fumble recovery. So a week after they pull the upset off number 6 Texas A&M, they proceed to lose to an unranked Colorado squad. Meanwhile, for West Virginia, they used to be ranked in the top 25, but after an overtime loss to Washington State, that is no longer the case. So here they are in conference play, taking on a Kentucky team who's also reeling in its own right. They did just lose big last week to the Penn State Nittany Lions, one of the best teams in the country, at least in this particular Dynasty universe, as West Virginia looking for their first touchdown of the ball game with 5 minutes left in the second quarter. Might make it a lot easier as Marquise Thompson, who helped force overtime to begin with last week, he's going to get it inside the 10-yard line, where the running back, Chad Williams, is going to take care of the rest. He'll find the end zone, and it's a 10-0 lead for the Mountaineers. Plus, they have a chance to add onto the board furthermore, as we see Chad Williams doing a little bit of double dipping here. He'll find that end zone yet again, taking that 17-0 lead. But late in the third quarter, trying to go over to the left-hand side. Great throw as West Virginia, they look like they have really responded after their loss in week number 1, trying to climb back into the top 25 ranking. We'll see if they can punch it in. Looking over the middle of the field, but it's going to be a crowded window, and he cannot fit it in there. So an interception in the end zone. You absolutely hate to see that, but Kentucky's offense was effectively shut down as they only managed to get a safety the entire time. So now we get into the later games and some great, intriguing games. How about USC? They were on College Game Day back in week number 1. That's definitely one to watch out for, as well as a top 15 or top 20 matchup to watch out for later. But for now, we'll check in on University of Southern Florida taking on the Florida Gators, a battle in the Sunshine Division, as USF will actually be the ones drawing first blood against the Florida Gators, as Robinson will get the scoring started in this ball game. But it won't take long before Florida reestablishes themselves. They will go ahead and retake the lead later in the second quarter. However, USF with a chance to take the lead with 35 seconds left, but looks like the ball's on the ground and it's going to be recovered by the Florida Gators. Almost taken back to the crib, but the super dive cheese is going to save them. So we'll see if Florida can cash in with the opportunity that they got. 23 seconds left. Dropping back. Looks to the right-hand side. Finds a running back. He's able to get the first down. And he will be brought down at about the 7-yard line. Matt Smith with the reception eventually sets him up for a goal line opportunity. And Florida will punch a field goal. So they don't get that touchdown that they're looking for, but they do extend the lead a little bit before we go into halftime. And now going into that second half. How about this throw to get the second half going? Rufus Holmes with a beautiful route to give USF the lead. And the Bulls were not bull crapping around in that third quarter, as that's going to be another touchdown. That will give the score for the USF Bulls now 21-13 being your score, as Paul Ferguson will get that first down conversion. They were going for it on fourth down, being spicy. You love to see it. Sometimes that's what it takes to be a winner. You got to be bold sometimes when it matters the most. We'll see if that fourth down conversion can work out for them, as they got a 2nd and 4 a couple plays later, as Ferguson looks over to the left-hand side, has an open receiver. Don't know why he just couldn't do a bullet pass there, but still works for a completion. Makes it 1st and goal as well, and they're going to hand it off to the tailback, who does the rest of the work. Matt Smith finds the end zone, and that is a touchdown for the Gators. And I would not be surprised if they go for that 2-point conversion. And yes, they will, with 7:20 left to play. Well, it looks like it's going to be a speed option to the left-hand side. And Paul Ferguson bamboozles and fools everybody. Now a tie ball game. 21-all. USF with a chance to win. Throws to the right-hand side. Breaks the tackle. And it's a dash for Stevie Larson. Into the end zone. Touchdown. USF. And the swamp is completely silent. And it is the Bulls, not the Florida Gators, that will be going 2-0 to start year number 1. Meanwhile, number 3, USC, is going to travel to Boise, Idaho, in order to take on the Boise State Broncos. Boise State coming off a win themselves on national TV. They took down the Cincinnati Bearcats over in Nippert Stadium. So this is going to be a home opener for Boise State, and it's a great team to open up against. Definitely a sellout crowd here in Boise, Idaho. They got more than potatoes, as you can see. As Boise State, they're hanging with USC, who could be a national championship contender when it's all said and done. But Boise State trying to poke some holes into that Fury, though, as they get an opening drive touchdown to start things out. However, Will Williams just has one of the prolific offenses in the country around him and takes advantage eventually, finds the end zone for USC. Now all 9 up at 14. However, in that second half, though, the depth of USC versus the depth of Boise State and what they got going on. Well, it starts to show here in this second half. USC, they get the scoring started, and then that second half, it was just all USC in this game. Nick Richards, he's going to get an 8-yard carry as well. Get some, well, it's 3rd and 2, but it might as well be 3rd and goal. You can't even see the first down marker. Look at that push that the USC offensive line gets. That's going to be one of the easier touchdowns that you will see probably in this season. So now USC has a 2-score lead, and they're going to be looking to really shut this crowd up permanently. Even right now, you can kind of hear a squirrel fart in this stadium. At 2nd and 5 now, Boise State, they tried to send the blitz, but he finds his receiver though, and that's going to be a 1st and goal for the Trojans as Jeff Evans gets his 3rd catch of the evening. And now, 1st and goal, going to the fullback of all people, not the expert somewhere out there smiling, as Tristan Prince is going to find the end zones for the fullbacks. First fullback touchdown that we've seen in this episode, so you love to see that. And Nick Richard will find the end zone yet again. So Boise State hung around for the first half, but USC took control in that second half, and they never looked back, and the USC Trojans win big. And we also see Kevin Hayden, a FCS Dynasty transfer. He transferred in from Georgia Southern in the FCS Dynasty file. For those of you that are OGs on the channel, yeah, he's at USC now. But then we check in on another top 25 matchup. This one, a battle in between the Bayou Division potential champ and the potential front runner for the Dixie Division in the Sun Belt Conference. So big Sun Belt Conference game. Of course, LSU, they took on Georgia Tech in their opener, while Auburn, they did not play last week. They were on bye, and it looks like they have a little bit of rust to get things started as Anthony Williams runs down the sideline. That's a 41-yard rush for Anthony Williams. Reminds me a lot of Anthony Richardson, who should have his name called in the top 10, at least based on what the recent mock drafts are showing over at Florida, right? But LSU, they do have a 3-0 lead for right now, but Anthony Williams, he's going to take a ton of pressure up the middle of the field. He gets dropped by Ryan Tanner, who gets his 2nd sack of the game. And now, 3rd and 17, dropping back, looking over in the middle of the field, but gets intercepted, and it looks like he might be taking us back to the crib. Does get dropped down at about the 23-yard line, but Anthony Williams, not a good interception, but you absolutely hate to see it. Ashley has really struggled in this game now that I think about it. He's already has 2 picks, but Auburn will take advantage of the 2nd turnover that we witnessed as Roy Gross, he'll get the scoring started for the Auburn Tigers, who now have a 7-3 lead. Meanwhile, late in the 3rd quarter, Auburn's going to make their fair share of mistakes, and that's going to lead possibly to points for LSU as Sean Thomas read that screen the entire time and made quick use of the interception, which will lead to an LSU touchdown. Joe Potts, the tight end for the LSU Tigers, he'll score for the LSU squad as the Tiger Bowl rivalry game currently in favor of LSU. But Auburn, they'll get a strike of their own, so will not take very long before they will retake the lead. And this ended up being a defensive struggle. That was the last score that we ended up seeing. And down goes number 1. We'll have a new number 1 team in the country. But who will that number 1 team? Could it be Ohio State? Could it be Miami? Could it be somebody else? We'll have to see how these late games go. Starting with Purdue taking on the Baylor Bears, who are still ranked number 22. In spite of their tough loss to the Minnesota Gophers, they're taking on a former Big Ten team as well, as Baylor will eventually get themselves on the board here late. They'll take a 3-0 lead. But now we jump into that 2nd quarter of action, though. Tailback's going to take the handoff, running into the end zone, and that is a touchdown for the Baylor Bears as well. Now a 10-0 lead. But we get a studio update on another game happening around the country. Louisiana Tech takes down the Arkansas Razorbacks 42-30. Now that is a shocker. How about Louisiana Tech getting their first win of the season against a top 10 team. That's a huge boost for that program. We'll see if Baylor can avoid that same upset bug as Purdue is marching downfield. They got a 3rd and 4, and they will convert the first down. It was close, though. Looked like Luke Daniels was trying to go backwards for a split second, but common sense did end up prevailing, as now it's going to be a 1st and goal opportunity. They fake the handoff all day in the pocket, but finds Joe Benson in the back of the end zone, and Purdue now on the board. But we jump into the 4th quarter of action as neither team having a red zone opportunity since then, but Purdue looking to retake that lead, or at least get their first lead of the game. They have not led all day in this one so far, so this will be critical for Purdue to score, and they will, courtesy of Cedric Miller. Cedric Miller now giving them the lead. But before we check out the rest of the Purdue-Baylor game, we have another studio update. Utah State and Illinois, they're going at it right now. 1-point game, last 3 minutes of the ball game, as the Illinois Fighting Illini, they are in a deep battle right now, both searching for their first wins of the season. Now we'll come back to our Purdue-Baylor game, looking to extend this to an 8-point lead, and they do! Or at least they should. We'll see if they decide to go for a 2-point conversion. They don't, so it's an 8-point lead. Baylor with 2:55 left to play in the game. Gotta try to drive all the way down the field. We'll see if they got that dog in them as they start with a 1st down. That does temporarily start the clock, but next minute and a half, they had struggled to move the ball a little bit, so now it's just down to 1:15. However, big throw over the middle of the field. That's a 1st down, courtesy of Bonnie B. Ingram. Now inside the 35-yard line. They got a shot. Dropping back. Looks around, throws over the middle of the field. His receiver does the work, and it's a 1st down. Refusing to go down. Mike Grant eventually will be rewarded with a 17-yard reception. And now with a chance to really tie this game up, and they do! Bobby Ingram might be sending them into overtime. Mike Stewart's only touchdown of the game, but it comes at a big time. And they'll go for the 2-point conversion as well. They have to get this, and they do. Cornelius Horn with his 5 catches and 99 yards. While it won't necessarily count on the score sheet, it counts on the scoreboard. So unless Purdue hits this Hail Mary, we're going to overtime. And this Hail Mary attempt's pretty good. 3-on-1, but the Purdue defender is going to do his job. He's going to get the interception. That's a big play because, you know, they had the numbers. They had the numbers. Quarterback was just trying to throw it as far as possible. So now we have overtime. Here. And start the first overtime, that kick might have actually been blocked. I'm not completely sure. But Illinois, they also have their score going final as well. Illinois will get to 2-0 while Utah State still searches for their first win. However, that being said, all Baylor needs to do is get a field goal. Just don't turn the ball over, and you're good. But what do they do? They turn the football over. Like, what are we accomplishing here? I have no idea, but we're going to need a second overtime now. So Baylor will start in the second overtime with the football, and good throw to start the second overtime. Finds Cornelius Horn, who's out over 100 yards for the day, but then very next play, got plenty of time, finds his receiver once more. Cornelius Horn has been really a go-to receiver late in this football game. Not a first down, but it is going to be 2nd and inches, and they're going to try to throw it over the middle, and Purdue gets yet another interception. They try to return this back to the crib. They don't get very far, so now the same thing for Purdue. All they need is a field goal, and they're going to win the football game. It's a less than 30 yards, but the Purdue kicker folds. He completely misses. It wasn't even close. Like, let's check this replay real quick. It wasn't even close, bro. I don't think he would have been short, even if it was online. Like, it's just not a good look. So now we're going to need 3 overtimes. And here we are now in that 3rd overtime. Could go in either direction. As now, 1st and 10. Inside the 15-yard line. They hand the ball off. Halfback counter, and it looks like Purdue gets themselves on the scoreboard. It's Brian Andrews. They will have to go for 2 because of the third overtime rule, and that's what existed back when this game was originally made, right? So that being said, Baylor must score a touchdown, but they don't necessarily need the 2-point conversion in order to stay alive. That will automatically force a 4th overtime, and if Baylor can get the 2-point conversion, they'll win the football game. 27-all. Baylor with a chance to win, but takes a sack. A big-time sack for the Purdue defense. Now we need 4 overtimes. Let's see if somebody can finally win this game. It could go either direction still. And sure enough, big-time play there to get it inside the 5-yard line. Baylor looking for their second touchdown in the last 2 drives. Fullback is going to punch it in. Xavier Johnson also sending a defender into the next dimension. They'll go for the 2-point conversion, and Baylor will be successful. So that puts a lot more pressure on the Purdue offense. They got to convert, otherwise it's barbecue chicken on this game. They got a 4th and goal penalty, put them in a bad spot, and they're going to be well short. So the game finally, and I mean finally, comes to an end. Baylor wins their first game of the season eventually in a barn burner. 35-27 ends up being your final score. So now we jump into Nevada versus Kansas, as Kansas open their season up for the very first time. Well, Nevada does come in 1-0. We'll see if Nevada can reach 2-0, or will Kansas be successful in winning their opening game here in season number 1, as Nevada does have a red zone opportunity early in this ball game, but it looks like Nevada will be going on the board courtesy of Williamson. Williamson will get the scoring started for the Nevada Wolfpack, as now Nevada looks to really put a dominating start in, and they look to make this a 2-score game. This will be one way to do exactly that. First and goal inside the 5-yard line. We'll see if they go back to Williams. They don't. Instead, they try to go with some slants over the middle, and it works. Touchdown, Nevada. And they're off to a strong start, 14-0, being your score. As now Kansas looking for a response themselves in the second quarter. They go with a quarterback draw, and the quarterback draw actually has decent success. Usually with halfback draws and quarterback draws, not very successful in CPU versus CPU matchups, but we do get a exception here, as Greenwood will get Kansas on the scoreboard. And before the end of the first half, they will also be tacking on a field goal as well in order to go ahead and cut this down to a 4-point game. However, Nevada does their job as well, able to march downfield. They'll get the field goal attempt to go as well. So 17-10 is going to be your score at the half. However, we jump into the second half of action here as Nevada looks to continue their strong play, going to their slot guy who gets them inside the 10-yard line. Basically a goal line opportunity, because again, you can't see that goal line or that yellow marker. So we'll see if Nevada can punch it in, breaking some tackles, and Nevada looking good to get the 2-0 on the year. Kansas desperately going to need an answer right now. We'll see if they can get it, as their tailback is going to run the football, runs it up the middle, and that's going to be first down for the Jayhawks, courtesy of Jamarcus Greenwood. As now first and goal for the Kansas Jayhawks, dropping back. Looks like it's going to be Joseph trying to run with the ball. He's a tough quarterback. Almost punches it into the end zone. He's going to be marked just short. We'll see if they run the football again. They do, and it's going to be a wide butt naked hole for the running back. I could have ran through that hole. And that was a former Division III out of shape cross country runner, right? Like, I'm not even that fast compared to these guys on the field. I could have ran through that hole. And now Kansas with just a 1-possession game. Still can go either way. You love to see these close games, especially two teams that are trying to prove themselves. At second and goal now, Joseph taking some pressure, avoids the sack, and then finds Greenwood the other direction. How about that? That was a great play by Joseph. Really keeping a cool mind. Because usually when you see a quarterback take pressure like that, the CPU will automatically try to scramble. Not this kid. This kid has a state of mind to keep an eyes upfield. And now his Kansas squad has got a chance to win this football game inside the 2-minute mark. All knotted up at 24. And it's a battle right now. It's Joseph finds his tight end out in the flat. And his tight end does some good work here. Eventually leads to a goal line opportunity. Joseph drops back, looks to the left-hand side, finds his receiver. Touchdown for Jamal Gray. Could potentially be the game-winning touchdown. As now, Nevada has to respond. Could be the final drive of the game for the Wolfpack, depending on how they use their timeouts. However, Nevada does get across midfield, so they certainly have a shot to pull this off. They don't have to freak out yet. A few plays later, about at the 30-yard line. Quarterback throws to the left-hand side, finds his guy yet again at just about red zone where they are right now. However, they come across a 4th down opportunity. They got to pick up this 1st down to keep the game going. And throws an interception. Kansas is going to win the football game unless the ball gets fumbled, which they don't do that. So Kansas storms back with 14 unanswered points in the 4th quarter and win by a single score. But now we got a bundy of top 25 matchups. We just saw Notre Dame take on a top 25 team, the Tennessee Volunteers, and win. But now they got to go on the road and take on the Miami Hurricanes. In Miami, they had the highest score of the week. They scored 69 points, which is still very nice, if I say so myself. So we'll see how Notre Dame and Miami do against each other. But Jeff Sanders will get the scoring started for the Miami Hurricanes. They'll quickly take a 7-0 lead, but Notre Dame on this 4th and short, they actually get spicy to call a fake punt with their quarterback. However, he misses the mark, so, Notre Dame trying to pull something out of the bag doesn't quite work like that. So now we jump into the 2nd quarter of action, as we will end up seeing Casey Carter find the end zone for the Miami Hurricanes. They'll get into the end zone yet again, and it'll be a 14-0 lead, which is actually the score that they will take into the 2nd half. However, the doors might be blown wide open if they're not careful, so Notre Dame, they got to get something going on offense. They will not, as the ball is fumbled. Miami is going to recover said fumble, and they were all over it like cheese on macaroni. And Miami starts out inside the 40-yard line. They hand it off to their tailback, who makes a couple of guys miss, trying to dash his way into the end zone, but Jeff Sanders gets cut down inside the 10-yard line. Oh, he was so close to breaking that to the crib, but the Super Dive Cheese does bail him out. However, 3rd and goal, Casey Carter will ultimately not be denied as he finds Corey Tudens in the end zone, in Miami once again dominating, this time against one of the best teams in the country. So 24-0 lead for the Miami Hurricanes. They're going to just pass a little slant pattern. Somehow there was 4 guys that could have made the tackle for Notre Dame. None of them do it. None of them do it. And Chad Newton, he's going to score. And why that's significant is that it expands his school record for most touchdown passes in a college career at Miami. He now sits at 34 career touchdowns, and Miami will also get a big-time win. 37-0 the score ends up being, taking Notre Dame to the cleaners. But we had one more top 25 game in this episode. Both teams opening up their season against each other. The Texas Longhorns, who are ranked in the top 25, well, they'll be taking on the Ohio State Buckeyes, who are ranked number 2. And not only does this game have massive implications just for general playoff stuff, but if Ohio State wins this game, they'll likely be the number 1 team in the country when that next top 25 poll comes out late towards the end of this episode. But, you know, Texas is tired of all the talk about Ohio State already. They're looking to make a name for themselves as well, as Texas will be looking to be the very first to get onto the scoreboard, and they will, as their quarterback, Adam Allen, is going to scramble his way into the end zone, and that will be a touchdown for your Texas Longhorns. Now looking at a 7-0 lead, as Ohio State just kind of feeling their way through this game. Nothing too crazy, but towards the end of the first half, though, Ohio State starts to open up their offense a little bit. You could tell, by the way, Keith Carter able to get himself open over the middle of the field, get a 22-yard reception, sets their kicker up for a 55-yard field goal. Not an easy field goal to make at all. Not even NFL kickers can make that type of field goal sometimes, but OSU kicker sinks it right through. So just a 1-point game going into the second half. However, Ohio State, like I said, starting with that last drive in the first half, they really start to open things up in the passing game, and Bradley Jackson, huge beneficiary of that. He gets a 34-yard reception, first play of the second half, and it puts Ohio State eventually into the red zone as 2nd and 2 now, dropping back, but the ball is fumbled, and look at this, a receiver recovers it. Brandon Burks is going to get the fumble and is going to take it to the end zone for a touchdown. I mean, listen, sometimes it's just better to be lucky than it is to be good. And Ohio State, they will go for the 2-point conversion. And it looks like, are they going to get it? Yes, they do. Robert Tucker, he's going to get his way into the end zone. Was a little bit spicy there for a second. But Ohio State, they do take the lead for the first time today. And if they're playing the way that they're playing right now, they might never look back. Although 2 minutes left in the third quarter, kick is up for Texas, and they will sink that one through as well. Both kickers doing a really good job today. You'll love to see it for both of them as they try to prove their NFL stock. It's hard for a kicker and a punter to make it to the NFL. Just got to keep it real. Not a lot of jobs for either of them. Those positions. And here in the fourth quarter, Texas ties the game. It's all knotted up at 17 apiece. Can still go in either direction. Tucker drops back, looks over to the right-hand side, finds his receiver right before he gets out of bounds. Keith Carter, he might be part of that 10 toes down movement. He might have gotten both feet in bounds, actually. But Ohio State drives down the field, looking to take the lead with 5 minutes left. Gets it off to the tailback, breaks a tackle. He's got some blockers, and he finds his way to the end zone. Touchdown for Earl Johnson. And now Ohio State with the lead. And they're going to look to ice this game by hitting this field goal attempt. Could go either way. And sure enough, the field goal attempt is going to be good there, as that will wrap things up. And Ohio State, they get a late safety actually, but it doesn't really matter on the scoreboard. Ohio State wins 29-17 in order to make a statement in their first game of the season. But now that we're at a point where we're out of the way with all the nationally televised games, let's check out some of the other games that happen around the NCSL. We'll start with UCLA. They will get themselves to 2-0 after a 26-14 victory over Ohio. And the Bruins, they're now going to be number 3 in the country. As for Bowling Green, back in week number 1, they took down Oklahoma to get ranked to the top 25. Well, next week, they leave a big stinker. They lose to an FCS team at home in the next week, so they are no longer ranked in that top 25. As for Rutgers, it seems like they're trying to put together a pretty solid season, as they are going to be able to take down FCS Southeast 45-12. The Army will also handle its business as well, winning 55-16. They're now 2-0 and ranked number 17 in the entire country. As for the Clemson Tigers, they beat FCS Midwest 31-12 as Clemson wins their opening game of the season. Pittsburgh, in addition, will get their first win of the year too. After dropping their opener, they win against FCS Midwest 49-14. As for the Oregon Ducks, they actually had a close call against FCS West. Oregon barely winning 28-24, but they are 2-0 on the season. As for the Missouri Tigers, they win their first game of the season, winning 38-9. And because of that, Missouri, they get back into the top 25, so now at number 23 in the country. Speaking of teams getting back into the top 25, the Charlotte 49ers are surely one of them, blowing out the Golden Flashes 48-17. They're now ranked number 25 in the country. Also showing their prowess against an FCS team is the Penn State Nittany Lions, winning 52-7 as they get their second blowout win of the year. But because of that LSU loss, though, we do have some teams that have moved up a little bit. Ohio State is going to be your new number 1 team in the country, and they'll have USC, UCLA, Miami, and Penn State also receiving votes for that first place as well. So definitely a very open race for national championship right now. Some notable rise and droppers, though, is LSU, of course, losing their first game bitterly against Auburn, so they drop to number 8 in the country. Clemson also moves up a couple of spots as well. Auburn getting a big boost. They are now number 11. They jump up 5 spots after going on the road and getting the win that they got. In addition, Alabama, even though they were on bye, they move up a few spots. Notre Dame only drops 4 spots, even though they were absolutely crushed by Miami. I thought they should have dropped more than what LSU did personally. Iowa moves up 3, even though they were on bye. Army moves up 3 as well. Georgia moves up 3, even though they were on bye. Baylor moves up 3 after an overtime win versus the Purdue Boilermakers. And rounding out your top 25, we got Cal at number 20. Big win over Utah. And speaking of Utah, they fall down 6 spots as well. Rounding out your group as well is Arkansas, who's now down to number 22 after an unranked loss to Louisiana Tech. Missouri, they're in here. And then Texas moves down 1. Charlotte is in the top 25. But in terms of your NCAA Players of the Week, we got Michael Williams, the senior redshirt for the Colorado Buffaloes, helping out in that stunning win over Nebraska. He had a great performance in the game, 9 tackles, 4 TFLs, also got a sack, forced and recovered a fumble as well. As for the Offensive Player of the Week, we do see that go to Ron Washington, who had nearly 250 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns, and then also chipped in with 3 receptions and 74 yards as well. Finally, for your Heisman update, at least as of right now, Justin Triplett is still going to be in first place, followed by quarterback Kyle Walker and senior running back Jelani Williams. But a couple of players that are moving up, we got Warren Williams, the quarterback from USC. Great performance yet again against Boise State. He's now up to number 4. And then Jeff Sanders, last game of that episode, man, 263 yards on the ground, made Notre Dame look silly, and definitely deserves that Heisman consideration as well. But boys, that is going to wrap things up for week number 2 action. We've had our fair share of upsets in this episode, and we hope to keep that rolling as we now roll into week number 3 of the inaugural season of the NCSL, and I hope you guys did enjoy this episode. If you did enjoy this episode, make sure you go ahead, smack that like button for me, hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed college football content, particularly in college football revamp, because not only does that like and subscribe get us closer to the next like and subscribe as well, but it gets this video out to more college football fans like yourself, and I want to grow this community, and I hope you guys can be a part of that. So that being said, this is John Jake Gaming on the mic signing off. Hoping you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.